My landlord texted me, "Don't go home tonight, the walls are listening." It's from Mr. Kellerman, my landlord, the man who once lectured me for 20 silent minutes about dryer lint like it was a biohazard weapon. I stare at it long enough that the barista calls my name twice. The second time, she makes eye contact like, "Hello? Earth to Nora?" I shove the latte sleeve up, take a sip that scalds the roof of my mouth, and text back, "WTF? Then, is this a joke?" Then I call. Straight to voicemail, no ring, just that sterile recorded lady instructing me to leave a message. My message is, "Hi, it's Nora, apartment 3B. That text was kind of alarming. If this is your idea of humor, it's not. If it's not, please call me back." It's stupid, because if anyone was going to prank me, it would be Jenny from the department happy hour, and her style is memes of raccoons. But my stomach is doing the small boat thing, up and down. "The walls are listening," he said. Listening to what? I live alone. I say ow to furniture a lot. I sing the chorus of songs and mangle the verses. That's it. By late afternoon, the sky goes the color of dishwater. I tell myself I'm not walking home because of the text. I'm walking home because I left my course reader on my kitchen table, and grading without that is like trying to draw blood with a spoon. The further I get from campus, the more my brain edits Kellerman's text into horror movie fonts. The streetlights flicker early. It's that old neighborhood weirdness. Too many trees planted too close to the sidewalk, roots buckling the concrete. Houses that look like they were built for people with never-frowning faces. My building is pale brick, 1950s square, with a stoop that tilts. One of the letters on the number is missing, so it reads like 31 with a question mark. Inside, the hallway always smells faintly of boiled cabbage and old books. Someone's put a fake ficus in a corner that fools no one. I climbed to the third floor with my keys in my hand like claws because my mother taught me that when I was 15, and it stuck. I'm telling you this so you'll understand that I am not the person who shrugs at a creepy text. I am the person who arranges her keys like a weapon and still goes inside. My deadbolt sticks like it always does. Once I'm in, I turn on every light. It's muscle memory. Lamp by the door, kitchen overhead, the tiny lamp on my desk that makes everything look warmer, less suspicious. My apartment is what I tell friends is charmingly crappy, one of those Craigslist finds you get smug about. The plaster arches are adorable. The outlets buzz if you breathe on them. I put my bag down. I say out loud, because I want to make the space normal, "Congratulations, Nora, you didn't get murdered." Then I hear it a whisper like a draft, low and dry. At first I think, oh God, the radiator is acting up again. It's the kind of building where the heat has moods. But then the whisper isn't a hiss, it's words. I freeze with my coat half off. The whisper comes again. Leave, don't, home, tonight. My heart does something slapstick. "Hello," I say, because apparently I'm that person too, the one who talks to noises. Silence. The machine hum of the fridge, the upstairs neighbor's weird rhythm. He paces like a metronome every night at 11. I timed it once. I tell myself I'm being ridiculous. I finish taking off my coat. In the kitchen, I take out the course reader. The whisper returns, clearer now, from the wall beside the bookshelf. Walls are listening. I'm not a religious person, but I bless myself with my coffee mug. It sloshes. There's a sound at the edge of it like tape being dragged slowly through a machine, like a cassette chewing itself. I step closer to the wall and put my ear to the cool plaster. It's like listening to a seashell and hearing your own breath, except it's not my breath. It's words I know. My voice, saying something I said into my phone yesterday. My stomach drops. It's me, laughing. "I know, Mom, I know. I'll send photos of the apartment. You don't have to worry." And my mother's voice faint and tinny. And then, layered under, my landlord's text. The exact phrase, like it's being replayed and re-replayed, a dirty loop. "Don't go home tonight. The walls are listening." I jerk back so fast my shoulder hits the bookshelf. A row of Penguin classics wobble accusingly. My body goes cold and hot. People like to say fight or flight, but there's a third option they never mention. Freeze. I stand there in the kitchen with my palm on the wall for at least a minute, while my brain flickers through options. There's a rational one. Someone is pranking me with, what, a Bluetooth speaker? There's the stupid one. The walls are haunted by ghosts who cared enough to learn my phone plan. I choose a fourth option, which I do not recommend. I test it. I say, quietly, "This is stupid," and count to 10. I put my ear to the wall again. 10 seconds later, the wall says, thin and breathy, "This is stupid." Okay, I touch the plaster where two hairline cracks spiderweb above the baseboard. The paint here is uneven, a shade off from the rest, as if someone patched the wall badly a long time ago. My apartment is a layer cake of bad renovations, you can tell by the mismatched screws. I fetch a butter knife. I don't know how to explain to you the compulsion except, once you know the wall talks, you want to know how. The first scratch sends dry dust down into my hair. The knife slips under the paint like fingernails under a band-aid. I pull. A crescent of old plaster flakes like stale croissant. Under it, there, metallic, a coin-sized circle with a grill. It looks like a tiny silver sunflower. I brush more plaster away and wires appear, the insulation brittle under my fingers. The device isn't modern. It's not like my phone. It's all screws and etched numbers, stamped with a manufacturer name I don't recognize. The grill feels 1950s, mid-century futuristic, the kind of thing you'd see in a science classroom's old speaker. There's a cable thick enough to tow a sled leading down behind the baseboard. I stand there with plaster under my nails, hard in my throat, thinking my landlord wasn't joking. And then, if the wall can replay my words, it can record them. Has it recorded all of them? The midnight sobbing calls to my ex where I rehearsed apologies? The professor impressions, the ones mean enough to get me fired? The small, private things that make up a person when they think they're alone? I call Kellerman again. Voicemail. I say, "Mr. Kellerman, it's Nora. I found a microphone in my wall. Please pick up. I don't know what this is, but it's not normal. If you're in trouble, tell me. If I'm in trouble..." The message cuts off when my voice cracks. I don't like the way it sounds out loud. Afraid. I am not an easily frightened person. I live alone in a city that sermonizes about how I should be afraid, and I do it anyway. The rest of this story happens the way you think it does, badly. I sleep on the couch with the TV on because silence makes the whispers louder. The TV is an act of camouflage, a wider whisper meant to drown out the thin one. At 3 in the morning, I dream and rewind. At 5, I get up and go sit on the stoop with my coat thrown over my pajamas because the air outside doesn't repeat me. It just chills. In the morning, I march down to the mailboxes because I'm done being passive. Kellerman is there, thin, gray, sorting with the precision of a surgeon. For a second, it's almost banal, the smell of paper, the click of metal boxes. Then he looks up, sees me, and something like sorrow crosses his face. "You shouldn't have gone in," he says, "not like a landlord, like a grandfather." "What is it?" I hold up my phone. "Your text, that thing in my wall. You told me not to go home, and I did, and that is on me, but now I need you to tell me what I'm living with." He glances down the hall like he expects it to grow ears. "Walking," he says. "Let's walk." He doesn't wait for me to agree. We go into the cold, down the side street, past a hydrant that's leaning like it's been drinking. He talks without looking at me. "You find one, you'll find more. They're in the plaster, some of them are dead, rusted out. Some are waking." I should be more skeptical, but my wall said my words back to me, like a parrot with a taste for humiliation. I say, "Why would they... Who would install them? And why warn me now?" He stops on the corner by the abandoned laundromat, its windows papered with "Coming Soon" signs that are a lie. "You think I'm the villain here," he says. "Fine. This building used to be government housing, analysts, the kind of people who could memorize your full name from a glance and turn it into a file. They experimented. Acoustic conduction through plaster, resonance mapping. In the 50s and 60s, they liked their experiments local. Your walls were trained to carry whispers the way a violin carries a bow across wood." "You're telling me the building is a giant microphone?" He shrugs one shoulder. "It was dormant for years. Then a contractor got a contract to retrofit. It's a trend. Why build new when you can reactivate? The old stuff comes with plausible deniability. Who's going to think the shadows in their walls are updated?" The back of my neck prickles. "What contractor?" He looks at me then, and I see how tired he is. Not just old tired, guilty tired. "I can't say," he says, and something in his voice makes me understand that he's not being coy. He's being watched. "I sent you the text, and that was already too much. It's not a prank, Nora. Get your things, leave. Don't come back." I look at him and think, he's scared. And if I leave now, I'm running, and I will always be running. And also, my split-pea soup is in the freezer, and if they cut my power because I skip out, it will defrost and flood the kitchen, and then my downstairs neighbor will write a passive-aggressive note in Comic Sans. Fear and pettiness can coexist, I'm learning. I'm not leaving, I say. Not yet. His mouth tightens. Then stop talking inside your apartment. He pauses and adds, stop singing too if you can help it. I laugh, which breaks whatever careful seriousness we were holding between us. Even Taylor Swift? Especially Taylor Swift, he says, and that almost makes me like him. I tell myself I'm going to class as usual, keeping routine like a talisman. I teach freshman comp how to structure claims to evidence while I have exactly zero of that under control in my own life. After, instead of going home, I go to the digital archives in the library and look up the building. There's a gap in the records around 1960-1970, and the smiley student worker at the desk swears it's a digitization backlog, but a local history blog hints at government use during that time. I find an old photo of my building, sepia and crisp. A line of men in narrow ties on the stoop, eyes up and left like someone told them to think about the future. No families, no plants in the windows. Cold. I don't know how to be a journalist, but I know how to research. I search my landlord's name and find a few city council meetings where he complained about rodent control. I search acoustic surveillance plaster, and most results are breathless posts about spy gadgets, but one link is to a declassified memo about resonant cavities in domestic walls. The memo is heavily redacted. The words you can read say things like deployment successful and no community awareness. I adjust my chair so it doesn't squeak. The sound makes me jumpy now. When I go home, it's just after sunset. I unlock my door and step inside like the floor might collapse. The air is still. For a second, I think it stopped, the whisper, like maybe it was a one-time glitch. Then the wall exhales a piece of my day. Think about the future. It's my own voice repeating a stranger's caption. I sit down hard on my couch and cry, which I didn't think I was going to do. But the thing about living alone is you don't have to schedule your moods around anyone. After, puffy face and all, I take photos of the microphone. I take a video of the wall delay plagiarizing me. The timing is off by seconds. It's not a live echo. It's like there's a queue, packets gathering and then slipping back into the room. I follow the thick cable down and discover that the baseboard hides a conduit. Someone replaced the original boards with hollow ones. There are scuff marks at ankle height that aren't mine. At the corner, the cables turn and disappear behind a bracketed metal plate that was painted the exact same off-white as the wall. Every time I look, I find another layer. The apartment I thought was cheap because it was old turns out to be expensive because it's a machine. At midnight, there's a knock. I don't open the door. I say, "Who is it?" The wall doesn't answer first, which is something. "It's me," Kellerman says. "Let me in." He's got a flashlight and a canvas tool bag that smells like bathtubs. He doesn't make me ask. He says, "Control room's in the basement. I'm going to smash everything I can without getting us both killed. You can come or you can stay out of the way, but if you come, you listen to me." "Why me?" I ask. "You could have sent your text to any tenant." He looks at my carved plaster wall, at the precise circle around the microphone. "Because you noticed," he says, "and because you didn't run." I go with him. We take the stairs. The building is a sleeping animal around us, old and breathing. In the basement, the laundry room lights are timed and blink off every 5 minutes with a brutal hum. The effect is very movie nightmare. He leads me to a locked door I've never noticed, half hidden behind a rack of broken mops. The lock is new, a gloss black panel with a place for a finger and a small camera. He says, "Back up." Then he reaches into his bag and pulls out a thing that looks like a relic from a different kind of movie, a rusty key the size of my palm. He slides the flat of it under the panel and levers hard. The whole thing comes off like a face. Behind it, the original lock, a skeleton keyhole. He grins at my expression. "They like to layer," he says. He uses the big key. The door swings inward on a breath of cold air that smells fluorescent. Inside, the control room is something out of a museum that married a startup. Big gray metal cabinets with little dials and a green oscilloscope eye, and then, stacked on top, sleek black servers with tiny blue lights, fans whispering. Wires drip from the ceiling in bundles. A monitor shows a grid with apartment numbers like war coordinates. A tiny red dot blinks on 3B. "You said you couldn't name the contractor," I whisper, because the room makes me whisper. But I point to the side of one server where the company's logo is etched. He nods. "I didn't say I couldn't help you find it." I'm about to say something grand and foolish like, "We should unplug it all," when he grabs a wrench and smashes the monitor. It collapses inwards like a punctured lung. The sound is so satisfying, I understand why people throw plates against walls in old movies. I'm not a smashing person, I discover, but I like standing near one. Then the door we came through opens again. The men in the doorway wear maintenance uniforms that are too clean. Their shoes are wrong, are not work boots, but something tactical. Everything in my body wants to curl up and be small, but Kellerman steps in front of me and raises the wrench like it's holy. One of the men says, "Sir," in a voice that is not about respect. The other takes a step inside, and Kellerman swings. Not a warning shot. The wrench catches the server rack instead and sends a tremor through the whole room. Lights flicker. Alarms stay silent. Of course they do, because alarms would imply someone has to come help. "Run," Kellerman says over his shoulder. He says it gently, like you'd tell a kid to go play. I run. People like to criticize the choices women make in stories like this. Why didn't she call for help sooner? Why didn't she tell someone? Why did she go into the basement at all? Here are my answers. I did call. No one answered. I'm telling you now, in this space that pretends to be private but is shared with whoever wants it badly enough. And as for basements, I went because there is a line where fear curdles into anger, and I crossed it. I ran upstairs and grabbed my laptop and my hard drive, and the course reader I don't even need anymore because my brain thinks grab paper when it's scared. I don't know why. Habit. Solid things. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped my keys. In the hallway, a woman from 2A cracked her door and said, "Is the fire alarm broken?" And I said yes, because it felt like the same category. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and plugged in my phone and dumped the videos and the photos into 3 different folders labeled boring things like Taxes 2019 and Recipe PDF. Then I zipped them and put the zip in my Dropbox and another in a throwaway email draft and another on a thumb drive I kept meaning to use for my thesis backup. Everything we learn because we planned for something else. Then I opened the terminal and turned on the VPN I never use because it slows everything down. The VPN looked like a tiny green shield. I watched it connect like it was a friend, grateful for anyone who would be my friend. I Googled secure whistleblower submission. It was 2 in the morning. There were too many options, and none of them felt like a human being would be on the other end. I chose 3. I uploaded. I wrote, I am a graduate student living in redacted. In building, redacted. There is a surveillance system embedded in the walls. It appears to be a mixture of mid-century analog and modern digital. It is active. My landlord is was a contractor on the reactivation. He tried to warn me. He is in danger. I wanted to say more. I wanted to tell them about my mother's voice replaying out of paint. That it felt like being haunted by myself. That the phrase walls are listening should never be literal. But I kept it tight. I uploaded. I sent. The next morning, my building was a crime scene without the tape. Men in suits walked the halls at 7 a.m. like they'd always lived here. I saw one of them glance at the baseboards as if listening for a heartbeat. The laundry room was locked entirely. No one made coffee, or maybe they did, but the smell didn't carry. The whispers in my apartment were gone. The room felt like a mouth closed around a secret. I packed a bag with the few things I could not stand to leave. My grandmother's mixing bowl, which is ridiculous because it's heavy. My favorite hoodie, the thumb drive in my jeans pocket, a stack of student essays I would probably never grade. I looked around to make sure I wasn't forgetting any version of myself I wanted to save and realized, starkly, that there were too many. I texted my mother, "Going to be hard to reach me for a bit. Don't freak out. Love you." I didn't call. The walls were quiet, but I didn't trust them. There are parts I'm going to leave blank because I like sleep, and I want to keep it. There was a news story 2 days later. You saw it. Maybe you scrolled past because things like this feel like fiction until they aren't. The headline said, Cold War spy tech found in residential building and retrofit reveals domestic surveillance network. There were photos of old machines and one still of a gray-haired man smiling awkwardly in front of a community garden. The caption said his name and that he had died by suicide. That was my landlord. If you ask me to be clinical, I can say, he didn't strike me as the type. But the truth is, you never know. People contain small rooms other people never see. Maybe he had always been waiting to enter that one. Maybe someone guided him. The official story was efficient. There would be an investigation, there would be accountability. Systems would be reviewed. No current residents had their privacy violated, the spokesperson said, using the present perfect as if language could hold the truth still. I watched the footage from a bus station on the edge of nowhere because all bus stations feel like that. On the TV in the corner, a chyron scrolled, the sound off, faces talking silently about my home as if it were a concept. I sat with my hood up and my phone off, the thumb drive a small rectangle in my pocket that I touched like a talisman. I kept thinking about something stupid Kellerman said. No, that I said. That the wall said back. This is stupid. We reflect what we hear, or we become it. I wasn't going to be the person who stayed and let my home make me into a soundbite, so I disappeared. Not dramatically. I didn't dye my hair and get a new passport. I just stepped sideways out of my life. I turned my phone on long enough to email the department chair a lie about a family emergency. I emailed Jenny, who loves raccoons, a smaller lie about subletting. I turned the phone off again. When I think about it now, the moment that did me in wasn't the whisper of my mother's voice or the men with their wrong shoes. It was the quiet afterward. A room that had once held me like a bowl and now was a recorder waiting to fill. I couldn't live inside a microphone. This is the part of the story where I'm supposed to be brave and say I'll fight. This is the part where the investigation digs down to names and numbers and jail time, and someone somewhere introduces a bill with a noble title. Maybe that will happen, maybe not. I've learned that the truth doesn't come out like spring water. It trickles through plumbing built by the people who needed water first. What I can tell you is this. The walls listen because someone makes them, and then they keep listening because we pretend not to notice. Before I left, I wrote a note and slid it under 2A's door. Don't sing for a while, I said, because her boyfriend plays guitar and she harmonizes. If your walls repeat you, check the baseboards. I think about her sometimes, a woman who leaves her curtains open and has plants that are all alive. I hope she is not brave. I hope she moves out. I hope she doesn't have to become a story. People say confession is good for the soul. Here's mine. When I first heard my own voice come out of the wall, part of me was thrilled. It was proof that I existed so strongly that even plaster couldn't help but memorize me. After the thrill, shame. I'd never realized how much of my talking was to myself. How much of myself is just talk? Maybe that's why I'm writing this down now, on a borrowed laptop in a library where the security guard doesn't look up when you walk in. I want a record I control, even for a second, even if it's naive to think the route between my fingers and your eyes is clean. I keep replaying the text in my head, the first thing that started it all. Don't go home tonight, the walls are listening. It could have been a line in a bad movie, a meme. It could have been my landlord's elaborate joke. Instead, it was a streetlight flicker that made me see everything in the alley. If you get a text like that, you'll scoff at it. That's okay. Scoff. Then look at your baseboards, tap your walls, speak softly for once, and see if your home blushes with your words. I will try to find a place where walls are just walls, where sound dissipates like it's supposed to. If that's not possible, I'll keep moving. In the meantime, I'll leave this here, in the only place I know how, a thin voice in a big room, hoping the echo that comes back is yours.